So, what if the source of King Solomon's legendary, almost mythical wealth wasn't in Africa or India, but thousands of miles farther east? Today, we're diving into a real historical mystery, the hunt for the lost land of Ophir, and it might just connect the ancient Near East to the islands of the Philippines.
The Bible describes King Solomon as having this almost unbelievable supply of gold, but it's always been kind of vague on where it all came from. For centuries, this one question has sparked expeditions, it's fueled legends, and the answer might be hiding in a place very few have ever thought to look. Okay, so our story really begins, as so many do, in the pages of an ancient book. We're going back to the Old Testament to find the very first clues about this fabled land of unimaginable riches.
So the first breadcrumb comes from the Book of Kings. It tells us pretty plainly that King Solomon's fleet sailed to a place called Ophir. And they didn't just pop in for a visit, they came back with a staggering amount of gold. The way it's written, it's not a myth. It's presented as a straightforward historical event. The text is super specific. 420 talents. Now, it's tough to give an exact modern dollar value, but in ancient terms, this was an absolutely astronomical sum. We're talking tons of pure gold, enough to build temples, to fund entire armies, and to cement Solomon's legendary status for all time.
All right, so with a prize that huge, you'd think we'd know exactly where Ophir was, right? But we don't. Not even close. For centuries, it's been one of history's great cold cases, and most mainstream theories have always pointed towards places like East Africa or the Indian subcontinent, areas known for their ancient trade routes.
But what if everyone's been looking in the wrong direction this whole time? There's this compelling, though, pretty controversial theory that suggests we should be looking way, way farther east, to an archipelago with its own incredible and very golden history.
And this is it, the Philippine Ophir theory. It's the belief that the legendary source of Solomon's wealth is, in fact, the modern-day Philippines. It's a pretty radical idea, and it totally reframes both biblical geography and Filipino history.
So what's the argument here? Well, the first piece of the puzzle is just the sheer amount of gold that was in the pre-colonial Philippines. I mean, when the Spanish first arrived, their accounts described indigenous people just wearing heavy gold jewelry like it was everyday clothing. They were burying their dead with these intricate gold masks. This points to a source of gold so plentiful, it could have easily supplied a foreign king. But it goes beyond just the gold. Proponents have built a whole case using this fascinating mix of geography, language, and even biblical prophecy. So let's dig in and break down their main arguments. Okay, so the case really stands on four main pillars. You've got the geography of an eastern archipelago, the mineral wealth we just talked about, some supposed linguistic links between Hebrew and local dialects, and a really specific prophetic verse. The language claims are tricky, trying to find similarities in place names, but let's start with the prophecy, because that's a huge part of this theory. This verse from the book of Isaiah is absolutely central to the whole idea. It speaks of a future time when God will be glorified in the isles of the sea. In some versions, it even says the coastlands of the east. For believers, that sounds a lot like a set of geographic coordinates. And proponents interpret this very literally. The Isles of the Sea in the east, well, that points right to the Philippines, one of the biggest archipelagos on the planet. And what about that reference to the fires? They connect that directly to the Pacific Ring of Fire, that hugely active volcanic belt where the islands are located. But here's a big question. Could they have even gotten there? The Bible mentions a 3-year round trip for Solomon's fleet. And get this, during the colonial era, Spanish navigators actually calculated that this exact amount of time would be needed for ancient ships to travel from the Red Sea all the way across the Indian Ocean, reach the Pacific Islands of the Philippines, and get back. The timing? It fits. So we've looked at the evidence that proponents put forward, but this whole theory is about so much more than just ancient history. We really need to ask, why does this legend have such a powerful hold on people today? It's really about faith, culture, and a sense of identity. So, what's the official word? It's really important to be clear here. The academic and archaeological consensus does not support this theory. Without any definitive physical proof, like an inscription or something, the Philippine connection to Ophir stays firmly in the realm of alternative history and faith-based belief. But for those who believe it, this theory is absolutely profound. It creates a direct and powerful line between Filipino heritage and the ancient biblical world.
It suggests a history that predates colonization by thousands of years, connecting the islands to one of the most significant stories in the Abrahamic faiths. And that creates this incredible shift in national perspective. The whole narrative changes. It goes from being a former colony that was discovered by Western explorers to being a land of ancient, maybe even providential importance. It reframes the entire story of the nation's origins.
So, in the end, whether the Philippines was the true location of Ophir or not, the fact that this theory endures tells us something really powerful about history itself. It leaves us with one final thought. How much do the stories we tell ourselves about our past truly define who we are in the present? That's a mystery just as compelling as any lost gold.